Hey everyone, Brian Zane here. Well, this weekend, wrestling history is going to be made because AEW is hosting All in London from Wembley Stadium. And truly the biggest story about this show is the attendance because well over 80,000 tickets have been sold. It's on track to break the all-time ticket sale or attendance record set by WrestleMania 32 a few years ago, and it's just going to be a big day for AEW. No matter what you think about AEW in general, no matter what you think about the booking or the build for this event, which certainly has not been stellar, it's not been perfect, I think the fact they were able to sell that many tickets on a show that, for the most part, up until a few weeks ago, didn't have a real card, I think is absolutely tremendous. It's great for them. It's great for WWE, setting their new single-day ticket sale record for WrestleMania in Philadelphia. Wrestling is a hot selling item. And I think no matter where you lie on whether you like AEW or WWE or both, I think as wrestling fans, we should appreciate the fact that these two huge shows are just doing gangbusters for attendance. You know, these arenas are going to be full. And I think for AEW, it's amazing to see how far they've come in just 4 years. And if you start the story at All In 5 years ago and make your way here, that is an insane amount of growth from that time to now. And so really, I don't think you can say enough things about AEW as a brand as far as like the credit they deserve for having got to this point. Now, as far as the show, like I said, the build for this show has not been 100% great, but we have said that a lot about other previous AEW pay-per-views, and you know, maybe it's low expectations or what, but when those shows happen, 9 times out of 10, we kind of walk away feeling, oh, that was actually a really good show, and it exceeds the expectations, it exceeds the build, and so I have a good feeling that we are going to get something like that here with All In. It's going to bookend this, as it were, with Adam Cole and MJF, beginning with the ROH Tag Team title match against Aussie Open during the 0 hour show. This is going to be a hard storyline to gauge, and I'll get to more about that when we approach the main event, but I do believe that what happens in this match will be tied to the main event. That being said, I don't believe that Cole and MJF are going to win the tag titles. I believe Aussie Open will retain. I think it's going to come along. It's going to be one of the two. I can't figure out which one it's going to be yet. Maybe as far as like who's going to be like injured. I think someone's going to get hurt in this matchup. Not for real hurt. It's going to be like a kayfabe injury to Cole or MJF, and that's going to ultimately cost them the match, and it's going to plant doubt into like, oh gosh, what's going to happen in the main event for the title? And so that's my kind of like fantasy booking or my guess as to what's going to happen as far as how Aussie Open will retain and create intrigue going into the main. Another match that was made for 0 hour, Jack Perry versus Hook in a rematch for the FTW Championship. This has been a very interesting storyline. I like where Jack Perry has gone as a heel now. Him taking the FTW Championship has been this great just heat source for him, and also getting to hear Taz just like, mumble to himself every time Jack Perry shows up or does something with the FTW title has been very entertaining as well. This one's going to be a tough one for me to guess here because you can see Hook just kind of getting it back and being FTW champion again, but I think there's also some more mileage you can get with Jack Perry as the champion. So this one's kind of a tough one for me to pick. I think you want to get Jack Perry over more as a heel, as a winning heel. My choice for this one is Jack Perry is going to retain. Women's Championship Fatal 4-Way. Hikaru Shida is going to defend against Toni Storm and Saraya of the Outcasts, along with Dr. Britt Baker. I do think it's a bit disappointing that this is the best that they can come up with for the women's division as a whole for this show. Hopefully for All Out back in the United States, there will be some better representation for the division. For right now, you just have this one match, though. I was kind of going into this recently thinking, the rule of multi-person matches or 4-ways or whatever, it's kind of a good way to like add this elevated sense of, drama and odds for the champion, but it's a good way for the champion to still retain. But I was thinking about that, like, I don't think it's going to happen. I would not be surprised if Saraya gets like the hometown championship victory here. And I think you could do that on the back of something with Toni Storm because they are going to be teammates. And I like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we get like a women's championship changing hands, going to Saraya, who is, you know, she's going to be in her home country. She's probably going to get a huge pop when she comes out because it'll be her first match there in ages. So, yeah, that's kind of my guess. It's kind of a wild one, but I do believe that that's where it's going to go. Darby Allin and Sting will face off against Swerve Strickland and Christian Cage in a tag team coffin match. It was originally booked to be Swerve and AR Fox, but as we saw on Dynamite this week, AR Fox was kicked out of Mogul Embassy, losing to Nick Wayne in that tag team matchup. He is kicked to the curb. Fine, like from a storyline perspective, I can kind of get that. No room for error in the group, what have you. Swerve is kind of this just like, he's this very evil man in kayfabe, whatnot. But I don't understand why Darby Allin would have been so quick to forgive AR Fox. Like, yeah, he was your mentor and all this stuff in your career, but also he just tried to like murder your 18-year-old protege like 2 weeks ago. And now it's like, oh, water under the bridge. We're fine now. Nick Wayne's right there when you do that too. Wouldn't he be a bit miffed by that? So it's very like early 90s Sting level of dumb to me, or like gullibility. It's kind of a tough one for me to call because on one hand I could see, you know, because it's Sting and whatever, and he's generally won most of his matches on TV and pay-per-view here in AEW. I could see them continuing that here, but also to continue the momentum of Swerve and of Christian Cage and what he's currently doing with Luchasaurus. I also wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, that be a factor. Like have Luchasaurus get involved. But that is how I believe Swerve and Christian Cage will win this one. Another last-minute shakeup to the card saw changes made to the Stadium Stampede match. It was originally going to be booked as 6-on-6 with the Blackpool Combat Club getting 3 mystery partners, but now it's 5-on-5. It's going to be Eddie Kingston, Orange Cassidy, the Best Friends, and Penta going against the Blackpool Combat Club and Ortiz and a returning Santana. We've not seen him since last year's Blood and Guts, and it's great to see him back. And, you know, I heard stories about he and Ortiz suddenly breaking off as a team, breaking off as friends, but the fact they're back together here, hopefully they've patched things up, you know, and they can perform business as usual. It's great to see Santana back, and I hope that he plays it safe in this Stadium Stampede match. Kind of an interesting match to return to after the big injury he got in that Blood and Guts match. This is going to be, you know, I think we're going to get that kind of anarchy in the arena style, all-out melee brawl, you know, 5 points of action, you know, all across Wembley and stuff. That could be a lot of fun. You know, it's going to be hard to capture the magic of the original Stadium Stampede. I don't think you're ever going to get that. So I think you're going to get more of that blend of like Stadium Stampede. You're going to get some wackiness in there, but you're also going to get just like the hardcore and the physicality of Anarchy in the UK. I mean, if you remember Anarchy in the Arena, I should say, just thinking about Eddie Kingston in the last Anarchy in the Arena match he was in, that shot of him being bloodied with the dirt all over his body and the can of gasoline. Don't know if we're going to get that same vibe here, but like I think we have the potential for some really awesome moments in this matchup. I think this is going to be a match that will see Team Kingston win. I think that, you know, he's one of those guys, if you give him just a big win in front of a big crowd, especially over his hated rival in Claudio Castagnoli, that's going to be a cool moment. So I think, yeah, that's my prediction here. I believe that Eddie Kingston, Orange Cassidy, etc., are going to defeat the Blackpool Combat Club and Santana and Ortiz. FTR versus the Young Bucks, the third match in the trilogy for the AEW Tag Team Championships. A match that many people thought briefly was not going to happen because of what happened in the news recently with Cash Wheeler, where it turns out he's more about being an old school wrestler than Dax Harwood ever was, as he talks about on his podcast. So, you know, I'm not going to speak on that incident. It seems to be going through the legal channels. The match is not in jeopardy. It's going to happen. Fine. I think this match is going to be a barn burner. I think these two teams have had some great matchups in the past, and this one hopefully will be a match befitting the final capper in their trilogy. I mean, will it be as intense and as emotional perhaps as the FTR Briscoes trilogy? I'm not sure about that, but I think it will be an entertaining match nonetheless. As far as who I think is going to win this one, I got to go with the Young Bucks on this, because the Young Bucks are in a position where they need this win more than FTR does. I think FTR is just, you know, I think their legacy is cool. I think the line that the Jacksons had in the interview on Dynamite this week, how like basically FTR owes their existence, or at least their name, to the Young Bucks and their YouTube show, that was just a great zinger there. But I think that the Young Bucks have been in this position in AEW where it's like you would expect them to be a dominant team, but they haven't exactly been. They've been a bit too giving of themselves, and nothing wrong with that. But I think that it's just one of those things where I think they need this win just more for their momentum and their legacy. I don't think FTR needs it so much. They're already the top guys, the 10-time 7-star FTR and everything. I think they're secure, but I think for the Young Bucks and how they've positioned themselves in AEW these last 4 years, I think it would make more sense for them to win the trilogy. The Golden Elite, that's Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, and Kota Ibushi, take on Konosuke Takeshita and Bullet Club Gold. That's Juice Robinson and Jay White. I know a lot of fans are probably hoping for a singles match involving Kenny Omega at Wembley. Omega and Takeshita sound like a slam dunk idea. Maybe not quite ready for that one-on-one yet. Maybe they're saving it for All Out. So I could see them, the six-man makes sense to me is what I'm saying here. I think it's a good way to get everyone involved in the card, considering, people had a kind of a doom and gloom vibe about Jay White when he first got signed to AEW, thinking he'd be lost in the shuffle. Now he's in one of the more prominent locations across all of programming on AEW between Dynamite and Collision. They're putting on some of the best matches right now, so it makes sense for them to be on a card like this. And again, kind of tie everyone up in the same kind of storylines here to have it all kind of make sense. And I think it's still going to be a great matchup. As far as who I think is going to win this one, I would imagine the Golden Elite will win. That's kind of my gut reaction, my gut take on that one. And speaking of people involved with Don Callis, you've got a very similar or parallel thread involving Will Ospreay and Chris Jericho. I know when this match was first rumored to be signed, a lot of people were upset, going back to the Omega needs a singles match at Wembley idea. Why not Omega Ospreay 3? Well, that's a New Japan storyline, and even though you had that second chapter at Forbidden Door, it's probably going to end in a New Japan ring, not in an AEW ring. So I get why we're having this match here, Ospreay versus Jericho. The storyline they put in at the last minute here during the contract signing, I thought was a good way to kind of give you more reason, more oomph to have this matchup, because on paper, you might not understand why these two are fighting, or you might not be interested. But I think that this match is going to be a good one. I think it's going to test Jericho for sure. But I do believe this one is going to go to Ospreay. I've said before in previous Chris Jericho programs and predictions that he is kind of in that giving back mode as of late in his career. So I really wouldn't be surprised if Ospreay gets the big win here. And of course, Ospreay will get a lot of momentum, going into his, eventual blow off with Kenny Omega and whatever else he's doing in New Japan for the remainder of his contract. It will give a good, extension or some juice into the angle between himself and Don Callis, since that whole twist just happened with the betrayal by Callis there. And I think that will be the tit for tat. Even though the Golden Elite will win the six-man, you'll have Will Ospreay winning against Jericho. There's a match for the Real World Championship as CM Punk defends against Samoa Joe. This is a storyline that has primarily gotten its build on Collision, which admittedly is a show I'm not watching a ton of, but I have been reading results and reading takes on it and seeing clips, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. I think the idea of Punk having come back with this other world championship that he claims to have never been beaten for, very Bret Hart of him. I think it's an interesting angle for him. It's also kind of plays into the people can cheer him, people can boo him. He's kind of a divisive character, and this belt kind of adds another layer to that. I love the fact that Punk and Joe are able to revisit their rivalry when they're, older and wiser, and they're on a larger platform, and are able to still go. And I think, that alone makes the match intriguing to me, even though we already did get a preview of that on television. I think that here on pay-per-view in a setting such as this, it's going to be very, very fun to watch. As far as who I think is going to win, I do believe that Punk will retain. Samoa Joe is still the ROH TV champion. That's fine, and so I don't think he's going to be hurt too much losing this match to Punk, and that's going to keep Punk's angle with the belt going, obviously. The House of Black defends the Trios Championship against the reunited, acclaimed, and daddy ass, or I should say badass Billy Gunn. Of course, it was Billy Gunn who seemingly retired a couple of weeks ago. He left his boots in the ring. The House of Black took the boots and destroyed them, and that has lit a fire under Billy Gunn to reunite unite with his boys in the Acclaimed and, try and take those belts. I do think that them teasing and now rescinding a retirement for Billy Gunn for the purpose of them winning the belts, I don't think that's really going to happen. I think that he will probably stay retired generally after this matchup here, but it'll be a nice kind of going out for him. For a career as long as he's had, I think he's earned the right to have it close out under a huge setting like Wembley. So I think that's going to be pretty cool. And as far as who's going to win, I do believe the House of Black will retain the belts here. And they might find a way to really take Billy Gunn out of the equation. Finally, time to talk about the main event for the AEW World Championship, MJF versus Adam Cole. We are back to where we began with Better Than You, Baby. And I will say, what we have seen between Cole and MJF has really been some of the most entertaining stuff all summer. And I think it's an early contender for one of the best things of 2023 from a creative standpoint. It's something that, really, I didn't have a whole lot of faith in going into it. I just thought it was going to be another kind of unlikely partnership, the same kind of formula we've seen in wrestling time and time again. But this is taking a path that, I wasn't quite expecting. And seeing, MJF and Cole first finding common ground and bashing Tony Schiavone when they're at the gym together, to the other skits involving like playing the video game and, doing the double clothesline and all the silliness therein. It's something that took a little bit of getting used to, even though like I was on the surface level really enjoying it, but I'm like, but is this like good though? Like, is this good for both guys? And it has been really good for both guys. And I think it's gotten them to explore sides of them we're not used to seeing on television. Like we've seen like babyface Adam Cole, but to be as human as he has been as of late, and to see MJF be this way as of late has been very refreshing and very entertaining. And look, eventually they're gonna have to give us a full-fledged babyface MJF, but there's a part of me that, because the fans clearly want it, I just don't know if this is the time it's going to happen. It just seems that there is going to be a betrayal, but from one side or the other in this matchup, or maybe there's not going to be one at all. Maybe they'll keep this tandem going for a little bit longer. I don't know about that though. I feel like maybe to set something up for All Out back stateside, you got to have something like that on this show. And I don't know if it's going to happen during the match. I don't know if it'll happen after the match, but there will be a turn at some point. Adam Cole, they've been planting a lot of seeds, more for Adam Cole turning heel than they have for MJF when you think about it. Like MJF has the history there, but on Dynamite they were showing clip after clip of Cole, looking pretty incriminating and Cole being very defensive about it in that interview. The complete opposite of MJF when he was being drilled about that sort of story about what was going on with he and Adam Cole. So it's like they're really setting you up to think that Cole's going to be the one to betray MJF. And I can see that. And as much as we've seen it before, like, boy, you hate to see another MJF turn where he actually shows his dark heart because he's the devil and everything. And I'm like, yes, that all makes sense. And like I was saying in my prediction about the ROH tag title match, I predict one of them, whoever's turning heel by the end of the night, is going to have an injury, and then that's going to kind of play upon the sympathy of the other wrestler, and then bam, betrayal, da-da-da. Because Cole's the one who said, I need to beat you. It's like very much reminiscent of Austin before his heel turn at WrestleMania 17. Saying, I need to beat you. I need to win this match more than you can imagine. I will do anything to win this. So it's like, again, they're just waving big flags at you to tell you Cole is turning. And so that's why, because it's so obvious, that's why I think that's not what they're going to do. And I think they're going to go back to MJF betraying Cole. So I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go. It could be the other way around. Could be no betrayal. But I'm going to guess that MJF will screw Adam Cole over and retain the title. That is my prediction. You can lock it in, and we'll see what happens when the show is over, if I was right or not. I think it's really 50-50 odds at this point. So, but that's my thoughts about the match for now, at least. But I think it's going to be great either way. But those are just my picks, folks. What do you think is going to happen at All In this Sunday? What do you think is going to be the match of the night? Which match are you looking forward to the most? I want to hear all about it in the comment section below. I will see you on the other side, probably Monday when I release my review of All In and give you all my thoughts on this history-making show. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to Wrestling with Regrets so you can get the notification of that review. And until then, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.